Hello YouTube, TryAdept here, and today I've got some more Fire Emblem Heroes content for you. So what I wanted to do today is one of my favorite things to do, and that is to speculate. And so we are going to speculate about some unique weapons that I would like to see added to the game, kind of come up with some ideas for them, you know, their skills and refinements and whatnot. So the trend is that I'm going to go with units, for the most part, that have been in the game for a while now, because units that have been added in later, obviously due to power creep, tend to have pretty good weapons and skills on their own, and they function pretty well. The units that have been here since the beginning, such as like all the Binding Blade units that we haven't gotten any more of, or you know, the Fates and Awakening units that we started off with a lot of them need a little help, so you'll probably see more of them as time goes on, because I do plan to do this a little bit more. Because like I said, I really like to speculate on new characters, new weapons, and all that, so I expect to see a little bit more of that in the future. Now for the sake of this video, I'm going to go kind of chronologically by the order of games, and there's going to be a little bit of representation everywhere. Like I said, may not be the case in later videos, but for this one, that's the way it'll go. And for each weapon, I will give you the name I've come up with, some of them more inspired than others, its might, its primary effect that you'll get just by unlocking it with SP, and its refinery effect that obviously can be unlocked with refining stones.
I will continue to put my trust in you.
So our first unit should surprise no one if you've watched my videos before. It is Sheena. She's our Mystery of the Emblem unit. We're giving her the Axe of Gra. It's a 16 might axe, and it will increase her defense and resistance by 2 for every unit within 2 spaces of her. Its refined effect is that she'll get extra cooldown if she is attacked, a la the breath skills. And just to clarify on that first bit, it is ×2 for number of units total around her, so it can be enemies or allies, but as is the case for every skill I have like this that I list here, the maximum is going to be 3. So we're assuming that we're in like arena and you have 3 allies. In this case, allies or enemies, you know, at the most for these skills we're going to say 3. So it'll be pretty easy for her to get a good +6 boost to both of her defenses, so I think this would be a good fit for her. I think it's fitting for her character, given that she comes off as a natural leader, even though, you know, she makes it clear that it's a bit of a struggle. I think some of her heroes lines are a little cheesy, but they really kind of showcase that she's trying her best to be a good leader. So I figure, you know, that an axe named after her country just kind of makes sense. And then as for her hero's functionality, she's already one of the better mixed defenses units, so this will kind of improve upon that role. And the breath effect is good because you'll still get extra cooldown even if you are using Vengeful Fighter, because it'll work on both attacks. But obviously it'll help her get to her specials quicker, which is kind of what she relies on for more damage. Between her high defenses and that, just give her some type of attack debuff or field buff for her defenses, and she can probably tank for a very long time.
I do what needs to be done. That's all there is to it.
So our next unit, we're going to move on to Gaiden/Echoes, and we're going to talk about Boey. So Boey, we are going to give the Steadfast Tome. It is a 14 might tome. We've taken away the owl effect and given it close counter. Its refined effect is it will have half of the owl tome effect, and it is only going to increase his defense and resistance by 2 per the number of allies within 2 spaces, rather than directly adjacent to him. And again, that's a maximum of 3. So I know close counter doesn't exist on a weapon yet, and it seems kind of OP to just slap it on there. But really, when you think about it, having distant counter on a weapon is a lot stronger than having close counter on a weapon, just because of the way stats work with ranged units, particularly mages, even though Boey is a bit of a different case. I think overall close counter is not too strong, and you kind of justify giving it its secondary effect as well, because it's not going to do a whole lot to make it more dangerous. So while Boey, both in Heroes and in Echoes/Gaiden, his big thing is definitely the fact that he's oddly tanky for a mage. So the name of the tome kind of pays tribute to that, and yet kind of his protective yet immature nature that he kind of shows. He kind of tries to be kind of a tough guy, so it kind of goes with that, along with that defensive stat line. And in Heroes, this will help him to be even more physically tanky than he already is, and in some cases maybe help him survive a little more magic attacks, given his res isn't that great, so this might help patch it up a bit. Close counter will obviously help him take on the physical matchups that he really does a lot better with. Like I said, it's a strong skill to slap on a weapon, but I don't think it would be as bad as having distant counter just slapped on and then a secondary effect. Overall, he'll still have to lean on Bonfire Ignis to do meaningful damage.
Well, I'm worried about you, so I decided to protect you.
Moving on to our next unit, we're going to be talking about Tailtiu from Genealogy. We're going to call her Tome Hurricane. It is a 14 might tome, and its innate skill is Wrath. B skill Wrath. Its secondary effect is it will grant her attack and speed +4 in combat whenever she has full HP. So the skill's a bit uninspired, I guess. It's kind of slapping a skill onto a weapon, but it kind of pays homage to the fact that she came with Wrath in Genealogy, so kind of makes sense. And the second bit kind of loosely pays homage to the story of Genealogy, like kind of sort of, you know, what happens to her after the first half of the game, you know, where she's, spoilers, you know, held captive and tortured. So kind of implying you want to keep her happy and full health. And it was kind of a toss-up for me going with this one and just ditching the Blade Tome, but I do think it gives her something a little more unique. Since she's already pretty glass cannon-y, the secondary effect will help out her offenses quite a bit when she's at full health. And then she can be basically a special bot when she's at low health. Especially if you just put Vantage on her, she'll be in pretty good shape. She'll be the only one that can run the Wrath Vantage combo. It's pretty strong.
One day, we will take back our realm, as long as Lord Leaf lives.
Our next unit, we're going on to Thracia. We're going to talk about Finn. So Finn, we are going to give the Hero Lance. It is an 11 might Brave Lance for its primary effect. And its secondary effect, it will increase the speed and defense of Finn and any adjacent allies by 4 whenever he's attacked. So I've seen in some of the Let's Play, I've seen a Let's Play for Thracia. I haven't played Thracia myself, but I saw it referred to as the Hero Lance, so I figured, I thought that was kind of neat, and I figured it would be a good nod, since it's kind of his unique weapon in the game, to go ahead and name it that way. The secondary effect ties into his relationship with Quan, Ethlyn, and Leaf, given they all share some type of speed defense boosting ability. I think it's only fitting that he does too. So he'll get a little attack boost with his Brave Lance. That's the first bit. It'll help quite a bit, given that Brave Lance is like any attack boost they can get. The secondary effect will help him to offset the speed penalty of the Brave Lance. It will also speed up his nearby allies and helping him and them tank a little more effectively. So that way he's not too scared of getting hit while wielding a Brave Lance.
A truly loyal knight is ever glad to bear the heaviest of armor.
Our next unit, we're going on to Binding Blade, and we're going to talk about Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn, we are going to give the Ostian Greatlance. It is a 16 might lance, and its primary effect is if the unit is attacked by a 2-range enemy, the enemy cannot make a follow-up attack. So if it's a mage or an archer, thief, they can only attack once. The only exception obviously being Brave Tomes, Reinhardt and Owen. The secondary effect is if the unit starts the turn with at least 2 armors within 2 spaces, then her cooldown will go down by 3 at the start of that turn. So with Gwendolyn being a proud knight of Ostia, and her commentary about getting better with heavy armor, I thought a Greatlance would be a fitting weapon for her, since she's getting better with all the heavy stuff. And then since she's able to do a triangle attack in Binding Blade with 2 knights around her, or surrounding an enemy, I figured the refined bit was kind of fitting. You know, if you keep her next to 2 armors, then she'll automatically get a special, pretty much. And while Gwendolyn in Heroes is defensive, her res is a bit on the low side, so the initial bit will help her to survive fights against mages, and if you give her just a counter that she can actually make a pretty solid effort at taking them down on the same turn. The second bit will allow her to get off special a little more easily, so she can get a little more damage off since her attack's pretty low, so really she'll need specials to do meaningful damage. Of course, this does require her to be used on an armor emblem team, or at least a team with 2 other armors on it, so it can't be used in combination with tactic skills.
I don't know. There's no good word. Shy?
Moving on to Blazing Blade, we're going to talk about Florina. So Florina, we're going to give the Elysian Spear. It is a 16 might lance. Its primary effect is if unit is attacked, it grants attack, defense, and resistance +3 during combat. So it's like a bracing stance, but also with the attack bit added in from fierce stance. But it's, you know, obviously the numbers are a little lower. The secondary bit is if she starts her turn within 3 spaces of an enemy who has at least 5 more attack than her, then it grants special cooldown -3. So basically, the name obviously pays homage to the Elysian Whip, which is the promotional item for flyers in the Game Boy Advance games, and I figured since Elysian is supposed to be kind of a regal, heavenly kind of sounding term, I figured it would go well with Florina, since she is, at least, I think she fits that build pretty well, more or less. And the first bit kind of pays homage to the fact that she is pretty easily intimidated in Blazing Blade, and she kind of gets over it a little bit. So I figured, you know, she sees all these enemies around here are really strong, and it, you know, it kind of sets her off and, you know, inspires her, I guess, or she's intimidated. However you want to look at it, that was my thinking. Then also, it will definitely help her a lot because her attack is on the lower side, so it should be proccing fairly easily. And then, since she kind of relies on an iceberg and glacies to do damage, this will help her get off a lot easier. And then, since she is slower and kind of a quicker post enemy phase type unit, I think the first bit would help her quite a bit. And then, wouldn't you know it, as soon as I finish editing this part, IS comes out and announces that in the November update, Florina is going to get a unique weapon of her own. Just figures that it would work out that way. Anyway, that's still really cool. I'm looking forward to see what they put out and comparing it to kind of what I came up with. No way it's going to be anything similar at all. It'd be cool though. But just for the sake of it, since this part of the video is probably going to get invalidated anyway, let me go ahead and talk about another FE7 unit. Just throw another one in there.
I somehow get the feeling that you could understand me.
One unit I'd like to see get a little love is Canas. And Canas, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, we're going to give the Gespenst Tome. I'll probably butcher that, but we're going to make it a 14 might tome. Its primary effects will be that he cannot perform a follow-up attack ever. He can only ever attack once in combat, but it will always act as if his enemy has a 30% reduction to their resistance. Its secondary effect is just going to be a speed smoke effect, which I'm really mostly just including for defensive purposes, as obviously it won't help him to get any more attacks in due to the primary effect. So this tome will pretty well mirror its FE7 iteration to a T, just in the FE7 sense it was so heavy that it was literally impossible to double anyone. Now in, you know, Heroes, Canas doesn't really have the speed to do so anyway, so it kind of just makes sense to give him this. And he won't be doing any doubling at all to anyone. And I figured with him being the only shaman in 7, and the only dark magic user outside of technically, I guess, Athos, I figured that he deserves the Master Dark Tome from that game. And I'm not sure why, but I ended up settling on the speed smoke effect. I felt like it was just fitting for it to affect the speed of his enemies as well. And overall, for Heroes, this will make Canas kind of a one-hit wonder type, similar to the likes of Lilina, who like doesn't need a follow-up to get a kill. They're kind of just leaning on trying to get it all done in one hit. The reduction in enemy resistance can stack with the likes of Moonbow and Luna. So if you go with Luna, it would basically be giving Canas a Black Luna type special, which I think would be kind of neat. Likely, with this tome, the best build for him would be to go with like TryAdept and just be a green sweeper. That way he'd get a big time damage boost, and like I said earlier, probably be able to score those one-hit kills a lot easier. And then, again, the speed smoke effect, while it won't help him to secure any more kills, will help him to not get doubled on enemy phase after he gets his attack in.
I will lay down my life to protect you.
Moving on to Sacred Stones. Should surprise no one that I have gone with Seth, considering I think he was one of the most... They did Seth pretty dirty. I think he needs a little bit of help. So, we're going to give Seth the Blade of Fado. It is a 16 might sword with flyer effectiveness and warding stance as its primary effect, and its secondary effect is the attack defense solo skill, which I don't know if that particular solo still exists, but you know how it works. He gets a boost to attack and defense if he's not adjacent to any allies. I kind of went with the name just because of like the strong sense of duty that Seth exhibits, references his devotion to his country and Eric Ephraim's father. The res boost is kind of just I thought it would really help him, but it also kind of loosely represents a sort of like royal blessing, I guess. Nothing like super specific. The flyer effectiveness, of course, is a reference to his fight with Walter, even though it didn't really go in his favor, so we're going to help it maybe go in his favor. And then the solo skill is just a subtle nod to basically the fact that he can solo the whole Sacred Stones game. On top of that, he'll get a small might boost, and that'll help him considerably. And then the res boost should help to work out to even out his defenses a little more, since paladins tend to have a little higher resistance. I think giving a little boost there would help overall anyway. Then the flyer effectiveness is of course niche, but situationally could be helpful. The Solo skill will make it basically a bit safer for him to go out and use his range to strike, and then hopefully maybe survive a little better.
Always glad when you have time for me. Thank you so much.
Moving on to the GameCube games, we're going to talk a little about Mist. Mist, we're going to give the Ashera staff, is a 14 might staff, and if Mist is attacked, allies within 2 spaces of her will heal for the amount equal to half the damage that Mist takes during that attack. Its secondary effect, if the unit has a defensive special, so if Mist has Miracle or any other defensive special, then she'll be given 2 extra cooldown per attack, so basically a breath effect. It only works if she has a defensive special. So I thought Mist kind of deserved a Ashera staff, considering she's a pseudo-protagonist along with Ike, even though it's kind of like the most busted staff in the game, but I figured outright healing everyone is a bit much, so I figured getting good heals out to everyone nearby is a good compromise. And the added bit meshes well with her natural miracle skill, which coincides with the fact that she was pretty dodgy with her high luck in the GameCube games. Honestly, Mist just needs something to be more useful and kind of stand out, because right now I think she's probably considered the worst colorless pity breaker at the moment. I've gotten a few, and I kind of like using her, but she's honestly not all that good. So I think this would kind of help her break out a little bit. I will say, though, I kind of enjoyed using her as a pseudo-tank, considering she has high HP and she has Miracle built in, so she's pretty slow and she'll be taking a lot of hits, but she can actually kind of survive fairly well. So I kind of thought this staff would kind of make sense in that she can bait in attacks if she needs to and get out an emergency heal if everyone's taking a lot of damage. And as I mentioned, she can run Miracle, and it should proc pretty quickly, so that way, you know, it should proc in time that she won't die outright, unless she's just attacked by a really high offensive physical unit.
My first task is always the safety of the royal family.
Moving on to Awakening, we're going to talk about Frederick. Frederick, we are going to give the Wary Hammer. It keeps its armor effectiveness, and its primary effect is if enemies in cardinal directions have attack that is less than the unit's attack, then they have their attack and defense reduced by 4. So that's the primary effect. It's a ploy that runs off of attack, and it hits attack and defense. Its secondary effect is if the unit has greater than 50% HP, neither unit or enemy can make follow-up. So it's a Wary Fighter. So basically we're giving an armor skill to Frederick. The name of the hammer kind of pays homage to his nickname Frederick the Wary from Awakening, and borrows from the similarly named Wary Fighter skill, like I mentioned, which is fitting since he basically is a tanky mounted knight. The cardinal effect will help him to protect and support his allies a little better, which pretty well fits his Awakening personality to a T, if you consider the whole walking ahead of the path and picking up stones so they don't trip bit. Yeah. I figured Wary Fighter would be a great skill for him personally, since he is a big time physical tank with low speed, so this way he won't get doubled, which is honestly his main weakness to being able to tank. And while his Brave Axe build is pretty good, I feel like the attack boost and the defense debuff should help him do more damage in the long run, maybe, or at least survive a little better and dish out more damage.
There is power fathomless within my pendant.
Our last unit of today, we're going on to Fates. A lot of people I think are asking for her to get this. It's Azura, and we're giving her the Blessed Lance. So the Blessed Lance we are going to make effective against flyers and mounts. Its primary effect is Renewal 3, and its secondary effect is if the user sings, then she will heal the ally she sings to for up to 20 HP, and then she loses the amount of HP that she healed them for. So it's basically a mini sacrifice. Given that the Blessed Lance is more or less her preferred weapon in Fates, it's only fair that she gets it. The renewal effect is passed on, and the effective against monsters bit is transferred to being effective against horses and flyers. The added bit is a reference to the fact that her voice is used to aid others, but you kind of notice throughout the story it does drain her to use it, so I figured that was kind of fitting. And in Heroes, Azura's main role right now is, outside of the obvious utility of singing, it's just for her to be a red check. So this will let her continue to check specific units, flyers and cavalry, and will add the ability for her to dish out small heals along with her singing. If you just give her one of the dance buff seals, she'll be in pretty good shape and be a really diverse support. Well, that's all I got for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed, and if you have any ideas of your own that you're kind of tossing around, be sure to discuss it in the comments. You know, if you feel like any of the stuff I talked about would need tweaking before it's added to the game, obviously it's all just for fun, doesn't really matter, but either way, I enjoyed making it, and I hope you all enjoyed listening to me drone on. And I try not to ask for this very often, but if you guys do enjoy what I'm doing, please do subscribe. It kind of helped me to see, you know, what I'm doing that kind of is, you know, drawing people in. So if you do that, it kind of gives me a good idea, and that along with like views and comments and stuff. So the more of that I see, the more I know something is doing better. So if you do that, I would really appreciate it. And I don't make videos a whole lot, so I'm not going to like flood your sub boxes or anything. Either way, whether you do or do not, like I said, I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Have a good one.